Hey book besties, welcome back or welcome if you're new. My name is Kyan and this is Kyan is Booked. We are going to talk about my favorite books from every single month this year. I will go ahead and asterisk this that I made this list in December of 2024. So if I were to have made it month by month, I think I would have chosen different books, but based off of like going back into my list from each month, these are the books that I chose. So in 2025, I'm actually going to pick my favorite book each month and like put it on a graphic so that I remember when it comes time to film this again, because I really do like, there's a couple months that I'm not necessarily sure, like if it would have been a full send, but you know what, like we're just going for it. Also too, if you see something move in the background, like right here, that's my little pup Belle. She wanted to come and like lay down by me when I filmed. So just so she doesn't scare anybody. We're kicking it off January 2024, kicking it off strong with Hans by S.J. Tilley. So this is book 4 in the Alliance series, and this follows Cassie and Hans. And he's not a part of the group just yet, even though he kind of wants to be, but they're neighbors. So Cassie actually makes him like baked goods and like drops them off on his porch, and like he eats them, and he slowly like starts to become obsessed with her. He does not unveil who he is and like kind of have like sporadic conversations, but Cassie can't help but like feel attracted to him and want to be with him, even though like he's really mysterious and he doesn't talk about like his job or like anything that he does. And she's like, I'm not even really sure if he likes me, but there's just something about him that like keeps pulling her in. And then of course, like she gets in a situation where she's got to go on a work trip and he just has like a really bad feeling about it. So he follows her there and ends up actually saving her life. And it just really becomes this like beautiful relationship between the two of them. And I'm obsessed because he's obsessed with her. And I love that energy for her. On the back, it literally says, but if he's gonna be obsessed with me, he better be obsessed with only me. And sweetheart, like you don't have to worry about that. This man's only obsessed with you and your baked goods because he doesn't like to share those. So these are my dark and disturbed editions. So I have the entire Alliance series and they're super shiny and super gorgeous. So definitely really excited that I snagged those for myself. Hang on, let me set this right here so that it doesn't end up getting gross. All right, so in February, my favorite book was Vicious Bonds by Shanora Williams. This is book 1 in the Tethered trilogy. I talked a lot about this book this year because it was like the first fantasy romance I really read of 2024 and really fell in love with. So like I said, this is book number 1, and this follows Kaz and Willow, and their souls are essentially tethered together, but they live in 2 different planes of existence. So Willow obviously lives on Earth, and Kaz lives in like Black Manor or Blackwater, which is kind of like, think like old school, like there's still like people responsible for like the towns. It's a little bit more archaic. And this is just like a really beautiful story of like 2 people who start off as like enemies to lovers, like they can hear each other and they've been able to hear each other for a while. And that's how they kind of start off. And then all of a sudden, they realize that there's like a much bigger fate for the 2 of them. And if they don't play their cards right, then like it could be a fate that will be really negative for them. So I actually read the entire trilogy this year. It is out, it is complete, it is amazing, and I highly, highly recommend it. Next up, you know, I had to have a Heather book on this list, and it was really difficult for me because she came out with a lot of bangers this year, but there was just something about Wicked Surrender, which is book 4 in the Bay Ridge Royal series. I don't know why I was going to say Battle Royale. That's hilarious. In the Bay Ridge Royal series. So this is, and I don't like obviously want to talk too much about this one because this is like in the thick of things. When the 4 of them are trying to figure everything out with Lainey, and some of them are trying to figure out things between the 2 of them, and then there's like all those forces and those dynamics and like the secret societies and the gangs and the mobsters and everybody that's kind of coming in between and like coming into like their harem and all of that. What I really loved about this series is like obviously we know Lainey B and we know this whole crew from the 82nd Street Vandal series, but I really just like the fact that like they're finally going to be able to get their happily ever after, and that just brings me great joy. And when Heather says that she's going to give us a hot guy on the cover, she gives us a hot guy on the cover. Nobody in this series is unattractive, and I love that for all of us. But yeah, so Wicked Surrender is my favorite read of March. And not my favorite cover of the series because that's between Milo and Bodhi, but you can't be mad at it. In April, I binged the Fae Guardian series. So my favorite one is The Longing of Lone Wolves by Lana Petracek. And this follows Rush. Oh my gosh, I literally just did this the other day. It's Rush and Clark. Okay, so this is 1,000 years in the future, and the world as we know it today doesn't exist, but Clark literally walked outside one night in like November, December in Las Vegas, and she woke up 1,000 years in the future, right? So there's a prophecy that is told to the Fae Guardians that there are going to be people who come from an ancient time or an ancient world, and they're going to be the saviors of this world, right? Because magic is slowly starting to die off and or turn dark. So Rush has been punished because he had a child with somebody that he wasn't supposed to have a child with, and so he was punished essentially. Nobody was going to be able to ever see him again, and he was going to essentially be invisible to everybody. And that was really difficult for him because he had to leave his son, and he wasn't able to care for and like raise his son in the way that he would have wanted to. And it's just very extremely difficult for him. So Clark's standing there and she's like, hey bro, like I need your help. And Rush is like, you can see me? And she's like, yeah, anyways, are you gonna save me? So like, you know, obviously like they strike up a bargain, and Rush does it in a way so he can finally like have a conversation with his son, because like this is the first person in 100 years who's been able to see him, right? And we slowly start to understand like the overall plot, because this is currently a 9-book series. I believe it's going to be 12 when it's all said and done, because there are 12 Fae Guardians, and this follows along with a much larger plot of like this world dying off and the humans versus the Fae and the shifters and et cetera, et cetera. So it's a really great start to a very interesting series, and I've loved every single one of the books, but like there's just something about like that first couple that kind of just like kicks everything off. And we know, while I loved the vampire section of this, the wolf shifters are usually always my favorite. Like I just can't help it. Next I have for May, Always Only You by Chloe Lisi. So this follows Ren and Frankie. So Frankie has rheumatoid arthritis, I believe, if I'm saying that correctly. So she moves to California because just like the weather and just everything that's kind of the environment that she's in is a much easier environment to kind of manage like what her body needs to manage. And Ren, from like the first day that Frankie showed up, he's a hockey player, and so she works for the team. And from like the first day that she showed up, has had this like massive crush on her. And you know, she's very strict, like no nonsense, all business, et cetera, et cetera. So he's never really had the opportunity to get to know her more, but he has definitely flirted, but she's never really like picked up on that, right? So, and it's just like a really beautiful relationship of like two people absolutely thoroughly accepting each other for exactly who they are, and it's just so beautiful, and I was so obsessed with it. Like I can't even tell you, like I still think about it, and like if I make a list of my favorite books from 2024, this will definitely make it. I just thought like it was a really beautiful story, and there's just a really beautiful story of like representation too. Like I don't know, like there's just something about it that like really struck a chord with me. And I've only read 2 books in the series, and like obviously one of my goals this year is to finish this series, because I really did love the first 2 books, but I really just like loved the way that despite what Frankie was going through, like Ren didn't see as anything other than like just caring for the person that he loved and cared for, and it wasn't this like big to do like her sister and her mom have always made it out to be. So not the biggest fan of the tropical fruit, but like that's what we got. All right, in June, I know you guys have seen this one, but I read Blood and Steel by Helen Shewart. It's the first book in the Legends of Thesmar series. Y'all knew it was going to be on this list. Like you guys knew it was going to be on this list because I'm absolutely obsessed with this series and this couple. So this follows Alethea, or Athea, and she is a female, and in a prophecy it stated that the female who had a weapon would be the downfall of the kingdom. So women are not allowed to be warriors, and there's this like really fancy, like it's called a warzord, and they're like the elite of elite warriors, and there are 3 left, one of them being Wilder Hawthorne. Y'all, I I love Wilder, and there's nothing anybody's ever going to be able to say to me that's going to have me not loving this man. Like, I'm not even going to lie to you. He is absolutely amazing. What I really appreciate about him is obviously Thea has the opportunity, and like she swindles herself into a deal to be able to become a warzord, and like obviously just like enter the and be the ability to like become a soldier, and then obviously like if she's invited to the Great Right, she can go, right? So what I like about Wilder is that like he was opposed to it originally, not because she was female or anything, but just because like, it's gonna be one more thing he has to do, and like he's probably gonna have to mentor, and like it's one more person that they're gonna have to train, and et cetera, et cetera. And there are just moments where he was like so supportive of her. Like, I cannot remember the quote off the top of my head, and I didn't grab the edition that had it on the back, but essentially he's just like, there's nothing more attractive. He's like, you would probably be the most attractive with the blood of your enemies on your face. My man. Oh, if Wilder Hawthorne has no fans, guys, he has me and Belle, okay? And Belle's looking at me like, who are you committing me to? If you haven't started this series, I highly recommend it. It is finished, it is on audio, and it is a amazing time. And actually, Thea's sister is the spinoff, so Iron and Embers. That one's coming out in January, I believe. That's the spinoff from this one. So, just saying. All right, in July, I chose Between Commitment and Betrayal by Shane Rose. So this follows Declan and Everly. This is the first book in the Hardy Billionaire series, or Hardy Brothers Billionaire series. This is a marriage of convenience, a fake romance, like a fake marriage, obviously. I would kind of deem them as enemies to lovers, but like not in the traditional sense of Emily. They just really like don't like each other. Declan, just because like he kind of sees her as like this rich, like spoiled girl, and her just because like she doesn't like being bossed around, which, girl, I feel ya. So this is their romance because her dad dies at the beginning, and his stipulation in one of the wills, in his will, is that the two of them have to like give a go at a relationship, hopefully producing an heir, etc., etc. Like, neither of them want to do it. But then it slowly just becomes this like whole situation of like, that's my wife. And like, for my wife girlies, this is definitely like a book for you, because I was just like, every time he said it, or like every time it got brought up, I was like, that's his wife. So anyways, I absolutely love that one. And then for August, Court This Cruel and Lovely by Stacey S. Stark. So I binged this series in August. I read all 4 books. This follows Prisha and Lauren. So this is a society where like you give your magic to the gods, and then when you get your magic back, I think it's your 18th birthday you get your magic back, but if you're found to have magic at any point in time between those years, then you're immediately executed. And Prisha has a type of magic that like she's tried to give over and over and over again, but like it will not be separated from her. So there comes a situation where she saves somebody in her town, and she obviously uses magic to do it, and then that person goes and snitches on her. So then she's got to make a run for it. So as she's running, she meets up with Lauren, who actually happens to be a guy that she's been seeing in her dreams. So more than likely, are they fated? We don't know. Are they going to be together? We're not sure. What's going to happen? Nobody knows. All we know is they've been having dreams about each other, and all we know is she's on the run because she's trying not to get executed because she has magic, and it obviously blows up from there. Definitely recommend it. I really enjoyed the series. Like I said, I read all 4 books in the month of August. Then in September, I read When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This also ended up on my favorite romantasy of 2024. She's an assassin, doesn't remember her past. He is her past, and it's a beautiful, if not heart-wrenching story of 2 people who are trying to come to terms with what happened in the past and the potential for it maybe not to repeat in the future. And he's so, I mean, I don't want to say he falls first, because like that's not fair, but like he realizes who she is first, and so like he kind of does fall first, and he will not let up on the fact that like they're literally meant to be together, and he saves this woman, but she's terrified to let anybody in because she's slowly remembering pieces of her past, but like not all of those memories are great. Not memories of him, obviously, but not all those memories are great. And it is just, woo! I definitely cried at certain parts, and there's a part in here about her dragon that had me sobbing. Like, this book is beautifully written, but also it's heart-wrenching, and I am absolutely terrified of what is coming for us in book number 2, which also comes out this year. She don't want to hang out with me anymore. Anyways, that is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. In October, I reread Delicate Escape by Catherine Cowles. So this is, it definitely ended up on my top small town romances of the year. So there's follows Shep and Thea, and she is on the run right now. Like literally gets paid in cash under the table, like lives in a broken down cabin, and Shep is the construction company in town, and so he offers to come out and fix things for her, but she struggles with being in like tiny spaces or just in spaces in general with men because of what she's running from. And it's just this beautiful story of Shep like really taking the time to really taking the time to let her come to terms with like the relationship that's building between the two of them, and really giving her the space she needs to in order to grow. And it's just a beautiful love story between the two of them. This series is still being written. It's going to be a total of 6 books. This is book number 2. I've read all 3 so far, and this is still my favorite in the series. I don't know what it is, but like it was just something between the two of them that just had my heart like a pitter patter. And there are a couple that has definitely stuck with me so far, especially since like I read this one and then binged the rest of Catherine's backlist, and it's still a couple that I'm thinking about. So highly recommend this one. If you haven't had an opportunity to start the new series, get on that. Then in November, I read How My Neighbor Stole Christmas by Megan Quinn. And I had such a good time with this one. And like, I'm picking this one as my favorite for November because it just like got me in such a good mood for the holidays. Like, it was so fun. Like, Megan Quinn's hilarious. I met her actually when she came to town in December. And like, she's so funny. She's got like really great ideas, and she's like always willing to make like a really great joke. And there's just something about her and this book and Story and Cole and how they're together. And the way that like, yeah, like everything's kind of a joke, and like they live in Kringletown and they celebrate Christmas 365, but like there's some like really deep moments in here between these characters, like really beautiful moments between these characters. But also too, it's just such a good Christmas loving time. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, there was just such joy when I was reading this, and I was laughing so hard at certain points. And like that candy cane scene, what's up? Like, hello? But yeah, so it's such a good time. And if you haven't had a chance to read it, I highly recommend it. There's actually gonna be another one, not in the same couple, but set in the same location, coming out in October of this year, like 2025. And I'm so excited. All right, so we made it to December, friends. What was my favorite book? Oh my God. Nobody saw that coming. I saw it coming. So I read this like the 2nd or 3rd week in December, and there was just something about this story because like I had wanted to read it all year, and like I finally read it for a vlog, and that vlog's actually gonna be posted on my channel a little bit later this week. So if I remember, I'll come back and link it. But if I don't, definitely check it out. But this follows Elspeth, and she has been sharing her brain and her body, well, like more her brain because it's a spirit of something. So all magic is essentially like placed into trading cards, and if you have the trading card, you have the magic of the card. So she touched a card, and her magic is like essentially she can take the magic from the card and it like becomes her. And she touched a nightmare card, and so she calls him the nightmare, and the nightmare lives in her brain, which is not creepy at all. And obviously this nightmare ends up being super crazy. Like I can't even explain to you like how insane this all kind of comes to be. And she slowly starts up this like really adorable relationship with this guy named Raven, and he is part of the King's Guard. And the king is trying to get all of the decks so that he can break the curse, but also Raven's trying to as well. But like the only way that you can carry magic is if like there's an infection or a plague going around, and that's why they want to break the spell, right? But the problem is like the people who are infected are murdered, but Elspeth's been infected, Raven's been infected, and one of his brothers is infected, and the king, and the king's his uncle. But essentially his younger brother is going to be sacrificed to break the curse or whatever, like however we want to say it, break the plague. And they're going to spill his blood and kill him. So Raven's trying to get the deck so that he can kill somebody else. One of the people who've been working for the king who like deserves to die 1000%. And then it just kind of like becomes super convoluted. And then the nightmare in her brain starts to kind of take over a little bit more and a little bit more. And it's a show. It's so good. I read both books in like 2 days. It was such a good time and definitely like a favorite to end the year with. All right, friends, 12 books in 12 months, my favorites of each month. Like I said, in 2025, I'm gonna be a lot better about like picking one like that month so that I don't get to the end of the year, because would they have been different? Maybe, but you know, this is what I picked and this is what I'm going with. Let me know in the comment section below if we have any of the same, because I would definitely like to know. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't had an opportunity to subscribe yet, please do so. And as always, my friends, I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.